On today's episode of Finding Freedom, we're going to be talking about polyworking. It's a fancy way to say having many jobs, many forms of income, and why more Americans than ever are juggling these multiple streams of income, why the 9 to 5 is losing its grip, and what it means for your freedom. Let's get to it. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Finding Freedom here on the Lions of Liberty podcast network. Great to have you with me on a awesome Monday here, Monday, December 1st. Not streaming this live. It'll come out everywhere sometime in the afternoon on the 1st of December. But whenever you're listening to this, thank you. Thank you for tuning in. And thank you for subscribing to this show. If you haven't, please consider it. And just looking forward to, I can't believe it, 2025 is almost over. So looking forward to 2026 and everything that will offer. But before we get to talking about today's topic, polyworking, let's talk about Fox and Sons coffee. Fox and Sons coffee has become my favorite coffee to drink. I drink it every single day. I just got some Ethiopian coffee from Stephen, the owner of Fox and Sons, Stephen Fox. And I think up until this point, I haven't taken notes on each different bean that I've tried. But if I remember correctly, Steve sent me some like maybe 4 or 5 months ago, Ethiopian, and I think that was my favorite. So I should take notes on each one that I try and talk about, the taste and things. And maybe someday when I have more time, I'll do that. But in the meantime, if you want to get your hands on some Fox and Sons coffee, you can do that by going to Fox and Sons. That is FOXNSONS.com. Get 15% off an order of $40 or more by using code JOHN, JOHN at checkout. Get some delicious coffee. Help out a fellow freedom lover and an entrepreneur and a guy who loves coffee as much as I do. Okay, today's show, we're talking about something near and dear to my heart, and that is multiple streams of income. And, I call it multiple streams of income. The kids today, they call it polyworking because you got to have a fancy name for everything. Polyworking, I would say probably more ideal than polygamy, multiple wives. You don't need more than one wife. You want to keep your one wife happy. You don't want to have multiple wives. But multiple streams of income, I think you do want that. In most cases, I think many people should probably try to go that route. There's maybe some situations, some scenarios where it's not right for you, but I think almost everybody should have multiple streams of income from a risk management standpoint. And we'll get into talking about some of the trends around polyworking. And I think where it's going forward from here, the different types, the different industries people are working in and finding success. We'll get into all of that. But the bottom line is today, more Americans than ever are working 2, 3, 4 jobs. When I say job, it's kind of a generic term for investing your hours in something that's going to return some income. It's really not a job. I guess when I think of a job, I shouldn't use that term because really when I think of a job, I think of trading your time for dollars. And sure, if you're in the gig economy and you're an Uber driver, DoorDash, whatever, in that same, you are trading your time for dollars. You're investing your time, you're driving people around, you're picking up food, you're delivering it, whatever. Time, you're getting paid for it. Hourly employee investing their time for dollars. They go in, they clock in, they work their 8 hours, they get paid, they clock out. Time for dollars. But building streams of income, those aren't always linear. You know what I mean? You might invest a lot of hours up front. You might put a lot of time in, get almost no return, and you get that money flowing on the back end in the future as you scale, et cetera, et cetera. But the bottom line is more Americans are looking for more ways to make money. In my opinion, the root cause of this, I think there's several root causes, but the biggest root, the one that goes down the deepest into the soil of this American economy, is the Federal Reserve System, the fiat money system that this country is built on. The money, of course, inherently has no value. The value is only based upon the faith that people have in the United States of America, the dollar being the reserve currency of the world, the petrodollar. And we got the bombs. We got the military, so we have that going for us here. But at the end of the day, we've had deficit spending. We've had quantitative easing, which essentially means just printing money. And more dollars have been injected into the money supply. So what happens when you get more and more dollars in the money supply? Well, it's not rocket science. It's basically the same thing if you owned an apple orchard. And let's just say, for this example, that the apples you were selling on that orchard were the only apples in the town that you could get. You couldn't get them anywhere else. You had the only apples. They didn't ship them in from other places. It's a small town, small area. They got one apple orchard. All they did was bring the apples into the market and sell them. If you have a year where you have a bad apple year, your apples are going to be more expensive, right? If you have a year where you have a great apple year, you have more apples. Those apples are worth less because there's more of them. They're not worthless. They are less value because there's more of them. And you still want to sell all of your apples, right? So that's essentially how commodities work. Now, when it comes to dollars, and I think people kind of lose the plot with this. There's many reasons why it's so nefarious with the Federal Reserve, but why our current system leads to such an income and wealth gap is that the way our system is set up, with wealthy people able to access dollars through investment banks and all of these different mechanisms before they are devalued and invest them and get a return. And then as things trickle down, poor people on welfare, people struggling, they get the dollars last when they've already been devalued, these new dollars, and they're worth less money than ever before. Every hour, every day, every week, every month, every year that goes by, your dollars are worth less and less. What used to cost $2 is now $3. Used to cost $5 is now $7.50. And if you're able to maybe buy a house, if you're able to buy some vacant land, if you're able to buy some gold and silver, if you're able to buy maybe some Bitcoin, there are stores for your wealth. So assets that maintain their value over time, they store that wealth there, right? They don't depreciate. So people who invest in those things are able to build wealth. People who have been able to own a house over these past years, 15, 20 years of crazy inflation, have seen the perceived value of their house skyrocket. Now, of course, the value in most cases of your house has not gone up. It's not become like a better house, unless you've made crazy renovations to it and things like that. Of course, people do that, but there's many people who bought a house back in the 80s and they've just held on to it for 45 years until now, have done nothing, have maybe not even maintained it. And a house they bought in the 80s for $80,000 is now worth $750,000. And a lot of that just has to do with the value of the dollar just tanking, and a store of wealth is houses. So that's where we are, why we are where we are. And I want to keep this to a short episode, but we're already 10 minutes in. So people are in a position, especially young people, who they're up against it, man. They might have student loans. You could say that's their fault. I mean, I tend to not point blame on that specifically because they've been lied to by so many people that it's really hard to give fault there. But they have paid for something. They've created a debt, and the debt that they've created, they aren't able to pay it. They aren't able to pay it off. Essentially, they'll be paying on these student loans their whole life. So they're in that situation. They have a housing market where they can't afford a house, so they're in an apartment as rents are going up in many places, and jobs. So sure, you might be able to get a job now where that same job only made, say, $50,000. Maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and that job today might make you $100,000, but that $100,000 doesn't go nearly as far when you're paying, maybe 3 to 4 times as much in groceries, and of course you have to have a cell phone now, and your car payments went from maybe $300 a month to, if you get a new car now, you're going to be paying $600, $700, $800 a month, maybe more, depending on the car that you decide to purchase. So what's happened is young people have kept the same expectations for what they want to have in this life. They want to have the car, they want to have the house, hopefully they want to have a family. Unfortunately, many young people don't want to have a family today. They want to have the cell phone, they want to have nice things, they want to go on trips, because a lot of people in Gen Z and Millennials, they grew up and their parents took them on trips, right? And they had this nice, affluent life, and young people want the same thing in the United States. Unfortunately, it's not there anymore. It's not available. That corporate job that you could get and get all these things, that doesn't exist. The climbing the corporate ladder up as you pay your dues and you work for the same company, or maybe 3 or 4 different companies over 30, 40, 50 years, that doesn't work anymore for most people. So what happens? What changes? Now, in a previous life as a libertarian, you complain about it. You join the Libertarian Party. You go to your monthly meetings, which are basically just social sessions, and you complain about the Fed. You complain about this. You complain about that. You complain about the political candidates. You complain about the GOP and the Democrats. You complain about everything. But nothing ever changes. All you do is complain. And really, that's not good for your health. It's not good for your health to complain. So thankfully, it looks like a lot of young people aren't going that route. They are instead deciding to take the bull by the horns and create more income. Because honestly, I think that's all people can do right now. Nobody is coming to save you. You need to save yourself. So what is the definition of this polyworking that I've talked about? It's working multiple jobs or side hustles at the same time, often blending together a W-2, maybe some freelance work, gig work, passion projects, things like that. It's different than moonlighting, as moonlighting is sort of like more desperate. Like, I hate to put it that way, but that's really what the way that I look at it, in that, you have the single mother who works 40 hours a week and then has to go work at the local gas station as a cashier for, another 4 hours every night. And, moonlights as the cashier in order to just make ends meet, just to make it. Now, when we talk about polyworking, I think there's more intention in it. There's more foresight into trying to build some diversified income, with the intent to supplement, maybe if you do have a regular 9-to-5 job. But many people, they don't have one solid big egg. They have lots of small diversified income streams. So when we look at polyworking now, like I talked about, the growth in people who are seeking out multiple streams of income is tied directly to flattening wages. So flattening wages, like it's kind of, I guess it's kind of confusing to put it that way, because the wages aren't necessarily flattening. Sure, you're getting your your 3% cost of living adjustment every single year. So they're not flattening, they're going up. And like I talked about before, maybe a job 10 years ago that's 50,000 pays 100,000 now. There's a lot of jobs like that. But at the end of the day, it hasn't outpaced the cost of what that $50,000 job used to buy, even just 15 years ago, which is crazy. And I think a lot of people haven't really processed what is happening and how AI is just going to supercharge this more. But just to give you perspective, a survey conducted by Deloitte. Deloitte is a consulting firm. They're all over the place. They've consulted with all kinds of Fortune 500 companies. They know what they're talking about, and they got their fingers in everything. 52% of Gen Z and 47% of Millennials now, today, December 1st, 2025. This survey was probably well before today, though. So probably the numbers are higher. Today, they have a paid side hustle. Now, how crazy is that? I remember when I started my first side hustle, which was flipping vacant land, and this was, I want to say 2014, 2015, around that time frame. My first successful side hustles. I had some failures with, I'm wearing the shirt now. My Make Liberty Great Again, if you're watching the video. Should I bring these back? Should I bring these Make Liberty Great Again shirts back and sell them in the Lions of Liberty store? If you want me to, send me a message, a DM, whatever, john@lionsofliberty.com, at John Odermatt on the socials, Instagram and X. If you want one, then let me know. Maybe I'll bring them into the Lions of Liberty store. Anyway, my first successful side hustle was flipping vacant land, which I still have some that I'm still getting paid on. What I would do is I would buy the land cheap, many different ways to do that, not going to get into it here. And then I would sell it in seller finance payments over a period of 3 to 5 years and get installment payments on it. And that's how I would make money. And when I was doing that then, I remember in my, the corporate job I was working at the time, talking to people about it, and they were like, man, that's crazy that you're doing that. And how do you have time to do that? And blah, blah, blah. If you went into those same offices today, you'd have not half the office, because not half of the employees are millennials and Gen Z. Maybe half are now. It's getting close. You'll have maybe half the office, 40% of the office that is doing some sort of side hustle, which is just crazy to think that shift in a 10-year period. It really goes to show the structure of the economy in this country has been completely altered. And you don't hear anybody in the mainstream talking about it because, well, the unemployment numbers are crap. They're not real. They don't reflect people doing exactly this. They don't reflect people who are maybe just working part-time and they're just kind of coasting along. They don't reflect people like myself, who I was laid off and never went back into the corporate world, and I've been essentially doing this, polyworking. So it's interesting times, and spending in this country is up, but wages haven't moved. So what are people going to do? They're either going to go into debt, which a lot of people are doing, unfortunately, or they're going to find ways to create more income. So that's the spot we're in. Now, from a technology standpoint, as I talked about before, with AI, this is easier than ever now. It's easier than ever to create content, to automate your work, to launch a small business. You can launch a small business on a weekend if you have a really streamlined idea, which you could use AI to hone in on that idea and build your timeline out. You can hire people on Fiverr, Upwork. You can use Shopify, Kajabi, TikTok shops, all this stuff. The barrier to entry is so incredibly low to creating a side hustle right now. And so many people are taking advantage of it, but at the same time, so many people I know my age, older millennials or maybe Gen Xers, who still put their nose up to it. Say, I could never do that. I could never sell to somebody. Oh my gosh, that's disgusting. Disgusting to sell to somebody. I'm not in sales. I'm not a salesy person. Hey, guess what? Yeah, you are. Everybody's in sales. Guess what? You have a job, right? You have a 9 to 5. Guess what? Every single day you go to that 9 to 5, you're selling yourself. You are literally selling your time to that 9 to 5 every day. Your job interview, your daily interactions, your emails, the way you talk to people, the way you go in your Teams chats, the way you conduct yourself on your Zooms, if you turn your camera on. Guess what? Every day you're selling yourself. Every day. I can't stand that bullshit. It's such a stupid thing to say. So if you're somebody who said that, just stop. Stop. The other part of this that's causing this shift is just culturally. Obviously, Gen Z, millennials, more of the workforce, younger people, they value flexibility over salary. They would rather work remote, maybe make, 80, 90,000, than go to the office full time and make 120 because they value the flexibility. They value the being able to go to the gym. They value, being able to have the time to go grocery shopping and cook. When they have a family, like myself, I value being able to, meet my daughter at the school bus or be able to, wake up with her and get her on the school bus in the morning. And I think a lot of what is driving this cultural shift, this cultural change, is you have many of the young people today, people's in their 20s, 30s, 40s, who the world that they grew up in when they were little kids and their parents, many families, both parents, much like today, slaved away at work. And we had, back in my times when I was a kid, we had the latchkey kids, the kids that came home from school on the school bus, or maybe they walked home from school like me. We didn't have buses. We just walked home because we were responsible children. You just have a key and you let yourself in. Your parents aren't there, right? Your parents are working. They're not there. And, this wasn't my experience. Growing up, my mom and dad, my dad's been self-employed almost my entire life as a lawyer. My mom worked as a public school teacher, but she went back and forth when she had me and my brother and sister. She stayed home and then went back and substituted and got back into working as I got older. But anyway, a lot of people my age in this 15-year, age range around me, they grew up in that. They didn't have a parent that was home, okay? And a lot of people, this wasn't my experience, maybe their parents didn't have a great relationship and they ended up getting divorced and splitting up. And, maybe these kids, as they grew older, blamed that demanding work environment and looked at it and said, did that cause it? Was it because dad was never there? Is that why he left? Is it because dad was always, traveling and he was off with blah, blah, blah? Was that why he left the family? Like I said, not my experience, but you just look at the statistics, divorce rates were extremely high back then. And I think a lot of people who are now in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, as they are in the work, as they are in the work field. I can't think of the word I'm looking for. As they have jobs, they don't want that same thing. They value time. They value connection, and they don't want to live that same experience. So I think that's definitely had a big influence on the cultural shift. So kind of like I was talking about, young people today value autonomy. They value their mental health. That's just a fancy way of saying they don't want to work themselves to death. And, they value alignment in the company they're working for more than they do career ladders. They don't want to work for a scumbag boss who doesn't respect them. Maybe they got a chance to get promoted and maybe get his job someday. They don't want to do that. They'd rather work somewhere where they agree with a vision for the company, where they can see a future. And if they don't see a future, they're probably not going to be working there long. So traditional corporate jobs also, this is a no-brainer. They're seen as unstable. right now, the layoffs with AI seeping its way into every nook and cranny of the corporate landscape, as corporations seek to optimize, they seek to offshore jobs, they seek to nearshore jobs. Layoffs have been happening everywhere. Promotions have not been happening. Like I said before, cost of living continues to rise. And with all of these factors together, you look at Gen Z, recent survey, only 25% of Gen Z says they expect to stay in a single job for more than 3 years. That's ridiculous. 3 years is not a long time. I know if there's young people listening, you might think 3 years is like forever, but I promise you this. When you get like me to the ripe old age of 42, 3 years is an instant and it's gone. So this is the first generation, Gen Z, where polyworking is the norm. So what are they doing? How are they making their money? How are they surviving? Will they be successful? How are they going to pay for their avocado toast? Well, I'll tell you how. There's many different fields that they're working in. And, I think a lot of this will change and evolve, of course, over the years. And as the next young generation comes up, we'll see more iterations. But, obviously AI is a big part of it. AI-enabled content creation, not just meaning content generated from AI, but people who use AI to generate content, like this show. For example, I will record this show, and then after I edit it and publish it, I will put it into an app that will create reels I can go into. It'll use AI to create reels, and then I can go into it, make some quick edits, and then I can publish it. And a lot of people are using AI in different ways to create content, to scale creating content in order to make money. Online health and wellness. I talked about this, 2 weeks ago when I said where Maha outlast Mega will make America healthy again, outlast make America great again? I think yes. And one of the big reasons for this is people care about their health. When you have the baby boomers, you have them aging, but not only that, you have people who are my age and younger. In this general age, you have realized, hey, guess what? We don't have to work ourselves to death. We don't have to stress ourselves out. We can take care of our bodies. We can eat good food. We don't have to eat processed junk that, or that the mega food corporations were able to trick our parents into feeding us when we were children growing up. We don't have to do that anymore. We can take control of our own lives. We can get healthy supplements to supplement for the factory farming that has led to a nutrient deficiency in almost all of our fruits and vegetables. We can take control of that, right? And we can do that by being nutrition coaches, by like myself, by having a company, a supplement company that you're working with as a brand ambassador or as an affiliate, in order to find a niche that you're passionate about and turn that into a way to make income. And then, in my case, having the option, the ability to be able to help someone else build a business and to make money that way as well. Someone else's success leading to my success. There's of course fitness coaches. There's people creating all kinds of different guides on stretching and detox and all these different things. There's group-based health coaching. My friend Jason Gagne, who runs his entire business, he has a very successful one-on-one exercise business where he, via Zoom, 100% Zoom, either group or one-on-one, where he takes people through stretching and exercises, all things you can do from the comfort of your own home. So this is already here, and it's just growing and growing and growing, bigger and bigger. Digital microservices. So microservices, very specialized. Social media management, podcast editing, something I've thought about doing, which I already am very good at. Virtual assistants, community managers. And then you have local micro entrepreneurship. So from, like owning an asset like a laundromat or vending machines or batting cages, storage units, to the service industry, to cleaning, lawn care, handyman. When I was a kid growing up, and this has changed, I think, when the way people like this were looked at, like if you had your own lawn care service or you owned a laundromat or you had vending machines, it was like, oh, that poor soul didn't go to college, so they have to work as an entrepreneur. That's terrible. Things have changed on that, I think, where thankfully these jobs are looked at with the value. These businesses are looked at with the value that they deserve. Then you have e-commerce and reselling, TikTok Shop, Amazon FBA, print-on-demand merch, just like this shirt. Facebook Marketplace flips, eBay arbitrage. I mean, there's so many different ways to make money. And then fractional work. I can't remember Corey. Can't remember Corey's last name. I had him on the show a few months ago talking about fractional work. You can, I'm sure, put it in the Google machine or go to our website, lionsofliberty.com, and search fractional, and it'll come up. But being a fractional CFO, CMO, director, sales manager, marketing, where you can work maybe 10, 15 hours a week for a company that can't afford to hire someone full time. You get 3 or 4 roles like that, you're making more money than you would working a full-time job, and you're diversified. You're de-risked, which is a beautiful thing. These are just a few industries, okay? A few industries that come to mind. So why is polyworking so appealing? Why does it work? Number one, diversifies your income, reduces risk. This is something, as a former risk manager, that I understand very well. And, it's crazy to me when I talk to people about the need for, multiple streams of income. And, people make decisions on emotion, and then they just try to, they backfill and they say, well, this is the reason why, and this is the reason why. So if you tell somebody, hey, Billy, I know that you've been working in oil and gas as a project manager for, 20 years, and you've had this great success, this long track record. And Billy, you probably will continue that. The oil and gas industry is pretty good, but you know what? There's a lot of project management software out there that they're using AI and scheduling and all these different project management aspects. They're getting more automated, and there's a lot of tools out there, and maybe there won't be the same demand for project managers. I'm kind of making this up as I go, but this is something that I'm sure could happen. And Billy will say, Billy's identity is tied into being a project manager, either maybe with that company or maybe just in that field, or maybe just the role of being a project manager. Maybe he loves it. I know this is something I fell into when I was a risk manager. Part of your identity becomes that. And when you talk to people at parties, yeah, I'm blah, blah, blah. I'm a project manager, and that's cool. That's great. But what happens is your identity becomes wrapped up in that. And then someone comes to you and they say, hey, maybe you should be a little worried about having all your eggs in that one basket. And they say, whoa, what else am I going to do? This is the field I know, and maybe you bring up something like sales. They say, sales? Are you insane? Sales? You want me to sell something? Well, Billy, you kind of already sell yourself as a project manager every day, and they keep inviting you back because you're doing such a good job selling yourself. And then Billy gets upset. It's just funny. It diversifies risk. So if you are a project manager, you don't have to stop being a project manager. You don't have to stop being a risk manager. You don't have to stop being a marketing marketing director. You don't have to stop being the CFO of your company. You don't have to stop any of it. You can start a side hustle on the weekend, 5-10 hours a week. Less than that, probably. You can use AI to map out a schedule on how you want to allocate your time each day and block it into your calendar. It is so easy to do. And honestly, most people, you're being selfish if you're not looking to do it, because you're putting your family in a position where you have all your eggs in one basket. And when that basket gets tipped over and the eggs fall out, and maybe they're not hard-boiled eggs, and all the eggs go everywhere, and you're in trouble, man. You're in trouble, especially in this economy where there's no jobs out there unless you're a robot. But the other, I think some underneath skills with polyworking, or underneath benefits with polyworking, I should say, are the skills that you develop. So you're going to develop skills, obviously, that are unique to whatever field you decide to work in, whatever you decide to do, whatever business you decide to start up. If you're something with sales, guess what? You're going to learn how to talk to people. You're going to learn how to solve problems. You're going to learn how to create connection. You're going to be more resilient in downturns. If you do have that side hustle, you can keep the 9 to 5, but you have the side hustle. Maybe you don't get a raise a couple years. Guess what? Maybe scale your side hustle a little bit more. Keep your income level at the same time in the same area. It lets you test out different business ideas. You can pick some different things with low or no investment and kind of see, what works. What field do I like? What could I see myself doing? I will say this, make sure that there is a path to cash. Make sure that there is a path to getting paid. I'll say one thing about podcasting. Most people go into podcasting and they have no plan on how to monetize. Do not go into any of these side hustles without having a plan in place to how you're going to monetize. Now, you can do that either yourself by researching, but even better, by talking to someone who's already doing it, picking their brain, buying them coffee, jumping on a Zoom. I am willing to do this with anyone who wants to talk about podcasting, if you want to talk about real estate, if you want to talk about network marketing and health supplements. I'm willing to talk to anyone about any of these things if you want to pick my brain. So I'm putting that out there. I'll talk about, if you want to start a Shopify shop. I've been terribly unsuccessful at doing that. And maybe you can learn from my mistakes. I've had success in other areas though. I've had success with network marketing, had success with podcasting, had success with real estate, online stores, like Shopify, not so much. But, and of course, ultimately, the dream, right? What is the dream with polyworking, with multiple streams of income? I used to say back in the day, 7 streams of income for ultimate freedom. That's the dream, right? Freedom, time, money freedom, flexibility, especially if you can create residual income, or maybe you build up a business and you're able to sell it off. I mean, that's the dream. Not everyone has to have that dream in order to do this. And maybe it's not a dream you have initially. Maybe it's a dream that's got to build up over time until you can believe it's actually possible. So don't let not having that dream stop you from trying to build some alternative streams of income. So what's the downside? I'll be perfectly honest. Burnout. That's the most dangerous thing. Burnout and taking time away from your family. I've been guilty of it. I've definitely failed in that capacity. I've been burned out from podcasting. I've been burned out from real estate. I've been burned out from network marketing. I've been burned out in every way you can imagine. But I've learned from it, and I've made mistakes. I've not managed my time well. Been up till all hours of the night working on things, not investing my time in the right way during the day. I've made all those mistakes, and that's a downside. And like I said, talking to someone who's doing this can be extremely helpful because you can learn some ways to manage your time. You can at least learn to look for some cues that you should avoid. Tax complexity, in some cases, yes, of course. I think if you're going to get involved in anything at all complicated from a tax standpoint, you have to hire an accountant. You have to, because you're just going to spend so much time on that it's going to take away from doing anything else. And that's another place I've been at fault. I have an accountant, but I still do my own bookkeeping, which I've gotten good at, but it took a lot of time to learn how to do that. And I would say if you can afford it, you don't need a bookkeeper right away, but after, you start making money, if it's a business that you need bookkeeping, not every business needs bookkeeping. They're not all that complicated. If you need it, I would say definitely hire one. What else? Not all side hustles scale. Okay. Some side hustles are going to be limited by the time you can invest. That just goes without being said, especially if it is like a trade-based side hustle. Say if you're going to clean houses on the weekend. Guess what? There's only so much time. I look at that more like moonlighting anyway. But some side hustles are not necessarily scalable. I will say this, like, you can scale almost anything with the right business plan, being able to maybe attract investment or get bank loans. And if you want to buy one laundromat, turn it into 3 or 4, you can scale with, especially in real estate and maybe some of these commercial businesses, with buying on creative financing terms, seller financing, different things like that. So there are different ways to scale, but that's knowledge. That's not something that people just know offhand. That takes time to learn things like that. So a lot of things are scalable, but many things to scale in order to do it, it's maybe a lot of time investment to learn how to. So I'm just going to say this. I'll leave you with a few questions. So if you could add a stream of income tomorrow, let's say you take out that initial startup, you snap your fingers, and you think, and you ask yourself, if I could add a stream of income tomorrow, a reasonable expectation, how much money would make a difference? Would it be like, wow, that's amazing? Would it be like $500, $1,000, $2,000? Would it need to be like $10,000 in your mind to make it worth it? Would it need to be $20,000 a month in your mind to make it worth it? How much money do you want to make, first of all? Okay? I think it's important to ask yourself that. I'm not saying long term. I'm saying initially, first 3 months, first 6 months. You want to be having a profit in your that you're moving over to your bank account. That's what? 500, 1,000? What do you want it to be? Nail that down. Also, how much time are you willing to invest? How much time per day? And maybe per day doesn't make sense because you can't do it every day. Maybe it's how much time per week? How much time per month? And you can kind of map out, is this realistic? Do I want to make an extra $10,000 a month, but I only want to invest 2 hours a week? That's probably not going to happen. Probably not going to happen. So make sure you're aligned. Have internal alignment. What skills do you have? You can make a list of all your skills, everything you know how to do, everything you're good at, and kind of map out, okay, see what works, see what industry would work, what business would work for you maybe. You can put all your skills in ChatGPT, get some ideas that way. What's one thing you've always wanted to try? What's the one thing that, when you have a couple drinks and you're out on a date with your wife or your girlfriend or whatever, significant other, and you start talking about, I would do this and I would start this business, and what is it? Why haven't you done it? Why haven't you done it? What stopped you? Ask yourself, what has stopped me from doing that? And then deconstruct it, and then think to yourself, how do I take those obstacles down so I can do it? This is a great exercise for everybody, myself included. These are things I need to do again. So what matters to you more, income stability or overall flexibility? Okay? So would you rather have that $120,000 salary every single year? Or would you rather have, maybe you're making 100, but you have some flexibility. You can go visit family. You can help out. You can volunteer. You can sleep in if you want to. You can stay up late if you want to. You can live a life more on your terms. Do you care about that more, or do you care about a certain salary? Because at the end of the day, we control our lives. We control where we invest our time. And so many people, you make all these choices that lead you down a path in life. And then one day you turn around, you're married, you have kids, and you're like, what? And you're working 60 hours a week in a job you hate. You're like, how did I get here? What happened? So it's just, I think this would be a good exercise for almost anybody to take themselves through. So I'll just say this. If your goal is freedom, if your goal is flexibility, I think polyworking, aka multiple streams of income, is something you need to consider. It's just make sure it's not done in a chaotic way. Make sure to plan. Make sure to communicate with your family on what you're doing, and include them in your decisions. Because what you don't want to do is get yourself in a situation where you're taking more time away from your loved ones, and maybe they don't understand why. So lay out that vision with them, and make sure everyone is on the same page, and you can be supportive of each other. And like my wife and I do in our network marketing health supplement business, we work it together. So it's very cool, very cool thing. So if you are someone, like I said earlier, I'll put it out there again. If you're someone who's interested in building an income-producing side hustle, full-time hustle, stream of income, and you want to ask me questions, if you want to talk to me, you want to pick my brain, feel free to. My email again, john@lionsofliberty.com. Get me on Instagram or X @John Odermatt. And I'll be happy to. I'll jump on a Zoom with you. I'm in a spot right now in my life where I just like talking to other people who think the way I do, who see the world the way I do. It's been a crazy ride for me, where I was very much into politics and trying to change things that way, and I don't think that's the path. I don't think that's the path at all. And when I talk about things like that, like this. And the way the world is evolving and changing, and I think of the next younger generation that is coming up into this world, I want to surround myself with people who have a freedom mindset, who have an abundance mindset, people who are, open to starting a business, open to, really taking risk. Those are the people I want to surround myself with. So if you're one of those people, reach out. Even if you're not one of those people, and you just have a question for me, as always, my DMs are open, as they say. So as always, I went much farther, much longer than I wanted to in today's show, but I just can't stop myself from talking sometimes. But I want to thank you for listening. If you're still with me, if you're still here. And please subscribe to the show, subscribe to the Lions of the Liberty Network, subscribe on YouTube, Rumble, wherever you watch, listen. Please lock that in. Helps us with the algorithms. Okay. With that being said, one more note. If you like what we do here, please consider joining us on Patreon or on Locals. We do have bonus content that we come out with a few times a month. And if you want more from us, you can get it there. With that being said, I'll be back next week. But in the meantime, always remember to keep your head up and those fires of liberty burning.